Is it worthwhile having a discussion when someone does something that bothers us? Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, where we talk about real life issues and tease apart what's true and what's not. And in this series, Torah for Today, we take a short idea from the Torah portion to upgrade and impact our week. Recently, someone told me something, and it really irritated me. And I was wondering, do I bother going back to the person and saying to them, you know, what you said to me really bothered me? And I wasn't sure, is it worthwhile? Is there any point to it? I don't know if this is something that you can relate to. The dilemma, the question of, is it worth talking to someone about something, whether they've done it to you or you've seen them do to someone else, or you just see them do something? So I want to share with you an incredibly interesting way of looking at this that might influence your decisions going forward. In the Torah portion of Kedoshim, there are many interpersonal laws, and one of them is don't hate thy brother in thy heart, right? It's telling us that you mustn't bear hatred. You mustn't carry hatred for a fellow Jew inside your heart. Now, what's fascinating is there's a series that come next, and it says the next one is, it says as part of the sentences that come next, the next one is you should rebuke them, right? Like if you see someone doing something that they shouldn't do, then in a loving, kind way, you should rebuke them. Interestingly, that mitzvah in itself needs some clarification, because it has to be, we can only do that if the person is open to listening, right? If the person's not open to listening, then there's no point in talking, right? But if you have those foundations in place, right, you have the relationship, you have the care for the person, and you have their best interests, and you know how to communicate that, then yes, there is a mitzvah to rebuke someone. Because when we care about someone, we want the best for them. When it talks about rebuking another person, it tells us you should rebuke them so that you don't carry their sin. You're not responsible for their mistakes. And then it ends by saying you should love one another. The Ramban is telling us that the sequence of these mitzvot, the sequence of these different interpersonal laws is teaching us something very, very important. He's telling us there's a mitzvah, don't hate someone else, right? There's a mitzvah not to hate someone else. And in order to get to that, you have to rebuke them. Why? You have to be able to talk to them about it. Why? Because then you won't carry the sin of hating someone else. Because one or two things will happen. If you are able to have that conversation, if you're able to have that communication, one of two things will happen. Either they'll be able to explain to you what really happened, and then you'll understand and you won't hate them for it. Or they'll be able to listen to you and they'll be able to admit and acknowledge what they've done. I'm reminded of a story that happened recently, actually not so recently to me, a while back. Someone did something that I thought was very, very out of character for them, and I was very, very hurt by it. And for a few days I didn't bother saying anything to the other person because I wasn't sure, should I say something, should I not say something, would I risk offending them, would I risk upsetting them, will they be able to hear me? All those different questions that go through one's mind when they're thinking, should I say or should I not? And then I took a chance and I said something to that person, and that person said to me, please let me come and explain it to you. And they came over to my house and we had a conversation. And the conversation was eye-opening to me because I realized that I had completely misunderstood the situation. That what I thought that person had done was in actual fact, they hadn't done it. And sometimes that can happen as a result of a conversation we have with another person. We have with another person, we explain to them what's bothering us, and suddenly they explain to us, hold on a second. This is actually not what happened. This is what happens, and it changes our minds, and we're able to open up and to let go of that hatred and to come to a place of loving them again. And sometimes the opposite will happen, right? We are able to communicate our hurt, our upsetness, and the other person can listen, right? And maybe they can they can acknowledge their part of it and do differently as a result. That sometimes also happens too, when someone is able to communicate what's upsetting them, and we can hear that and change that. That's also a way to let go of hate and to increase it. Ramban is telling us that the mitzvah of not rebuking will lead us not to have the sin of hating, because it's a way to reduce the hatred and increase the love for one another. For those of us that are parents or that work with kids, this gift of communication, of being able to speak about what bothers us in a kind, loving way to someone else so that they can hear it, is such a gift that we can give to our kids. And one of the ways we can do that is by modeling, right? By giving them the space to talk about what's bothering us, teaching them how to express that in a respectful way, and listening when they tell us. And also, similarly, if we mess up, if we do anything, if we can acknowledge that and show our children that, we can have that self-reflection, then we can model to our kids this idea, this concept that when something is bothering you, there's a time and there's a place for communicating that with someone else. And that ability to communicate is such a powerful gift that it brings to our relationships. It's a mitzvah to be able to do that for someone else. And it helps increase the love and reduce the hatred that we have for other people. Thank you for taking the time to listen. To schedule a complimentary discovery call with Gila, please email gilaross@gmail.com. You can also learn more from Gila on Instagram. It's Gila Ross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.